So today I'm going to talk about denial. Denial is the thing that allows the perpetuation of all of the atrocities, not only in the world, but in our personal lives. So if we're too busy repressing how we really feel about things, or denying and keeping ourselves blind to situations that are happening in our lives, all of that energy that can be used to create the life that we want, to radiate a presence, to feel joy, all of that energy is being used hiding things from ourselves. So when you think about the things that are happening in the world that have been happening since the beginning of mankind, right? Child trafficking, sexually abusing children, the treatment of women like objects. What keeps it going is the refusal to see it. And some teachers would say, well, it's our continuation of the story about it. So I want to really pause and clear up, when people say turn the other cheek, withdraw your attention from something so that you no longer give it energy. What that actually means is look at something for what it is and know that there's a solution. So I can acknowledge, yes, there is child abuse, child trafficking. There is in my own life abuse happening, right? When I can acknowledge it and no longer be in denial, now I have access to a solution. Because if I pretend like it's not happening, right? And I pretend like my internal reality isn't happening, because when we're in abusive situations, we have a lot of energy coming up to help us become aware of a situation, right? Not all negative emotion is something that we have to learn how to shift or change. In fact, most of it isn't. It's just there to be acknowledged for the message that it's giving you, felt and released. But how can you release and liberate that energy if you spend so much energy hiding it from yourself? So the first step in moving out of the paradigm of denial is that we stop denying how we really feel. The one reason, right, the major reason why manifestation stuff and all that stuff doesn't work for most people is because they're not letting themselves be aware of their unconsciousness. They're not letting themselves be aware of their emotional addictions. They're not letting themselves be aware of their anger. They're not letting themselves be aware of their resentments, because we've been taught that that's a low vibration. But raising your vibration means becoming aware of something so that it no longer owns you and leaving it behind. That process can't occur unless you let yourself see your perceptions, your projections, your reactions. See and feel them. You have to let yourself see the projections and feel the reactions and liberate the energy by being present with the energy of reaction, of anger, of resentment. Because if you're actually present with something, then you can actually see the futility of it. If you don't let yourself feel how dysregulating anger is, you will never let it go, because you believe the payoff of remaining angry is greater than the payoff of letting it go, because you haven't let yourself feel how incredibly dysregulating it can be. So if I let myself feel just how angry I truly am about something, if I allow myself to get out of denial, then that awareness of reality will open up a plethora of options to me, like, okay, can I change my attitude, right? Sometimes the denial is not that, oh, there's abuse in our environment, we need to leave it, although many times that is the case. Sometimes it's acknowledging, like, I am projecting vitriol and hatred and negativity onto the people in my life because I don't feel free, right? If you don't let yourself feel the emotion, it can't deliver the message that it's trying to deliver you, right? So if I allow myself to feel everything completely, I see the futility of remaining in bondage. I see the futility of unconsciously creating chaos in my life by holding down my emotions. We create chaos in our lives because we deny our emotional reality. Because if you have been taught that it is bad to be angry, it is bad to have a negative emotion, it's bad, blah, 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 you will spend energy repressing it and pushing it down. And because that energy is very powerful and it's trying to liberate you, it will find an escape route. It will find an avenue to express itself, either as cruelty, as creating chaos, as inertia, as sickness, as deception, as all kinds of drama. Not because you're being punished, but because you haven't learned yet that what's required is to allow it to arise so that you can get the information that the universe is trying to give you, because it loves you. The universe is not neutral. Life is not meaningless and neutral. God is love. And why would we attract our vibration, which is not only our karma and our beliefs, but also our soul's desire? If we have the soul's desire to awaken, we will attract teachers to teach us the levels of energy that we are stuck in so that we can evolve and move past those things. So denial is literally what keeps every human being in a state of in mediocrity, because you are literally the energy that creates worlds, and you cannot be filled with the spirit, you can't be enlivened by the spirit unless you let yourself be emptied, unless you get out of denial and admit to yourself all of the different ways that you're in survival and manipulation, all of the petty ways that you try to feel powerful, admitting how terrified you really are in your life. Once you let yourself see and feel that reality, because what's most strong in you is the desire to express and evolve your divinity, you will see the futility of it. It's like, think of anybody with an intention, right? Like if you're an athlete and you want to run a marathon, you know that if I keep twisting my ankle, if I keep doing this, living in a way that hurts me, I'm never going to reach my goal. It's just such an obvious knowing. So because you let yourself see that information, okay, the way that I'm going about this is hurting me and others. Okay, you can make an adjustment, like rest more, change your diet, train at a different time of the day, and so on and so on. So what's essential in allowing yourself to get out of denial is that you simply first forgive yourself, right, for being in denial. Denial is so strong. Denial and the heretic wound are so strong. It is true that throughout history, people who have said the truth, people who have said, you are God, you don't need an intermediary, you don't have to give up your gold coins in order to get into heaven, you can use herbs to heal. Witches were killed simply because they didn't choose to have children, because they chose to develop their craft over having kind of the patriarchal model. And by the way, I don't believe we live in a patriarchal society, because if the masculine energy is unconscious, the feminine energy is also unconscious. And when I deep dive into people's minds, often what I find is that the dark feminine is just as much the culprit as the aggressive masculine, right? So dark feminine looks like the addiction to drama, getting lost in sensation, getting lost in whirlpools of emotion. But because we have seen all these examples of people who have been punished for expressing freely, we don't let ourselves do that. So we buy into the religious and spiritual conditioning that having emotions is bad, that having a negative emotion means I have a low vibration. The fact of the matter is that if your soul intended to awaken, your emotions that are your survival emotions will feel much more amplified to you than a person who did not intend to awaken in this lifetime, than a unit of consciousness that is not expressing the energy of awakening in this lifetime. Why? Kundalini and spiritual energy amplifies negative emotions, and anything inside you that is not God, meaning survival, meaning the idea that I'm separate from life, it amplifies that in your experience, and it feels so uncomfortable because that's what it takes to let go of millions of years of conditioning. You have to have it amplified in your face to know the futility of it, to know the pain of it, to know the truth of it, which is that it's time to let it go. A lot of times people with physical illnesses feel guilty or that they have a low vibration because, oh, well, if I had a high vibration, my body would be perfectly healthy. Well, okay, on some level that's true. However, it's a well-documented fact that there are the illnesses of the mystics, because when you have a huge influx of light and the body-mind is not vibrating yet at a level of energy that can handle that much light, you might experience some symptoms. If you set an intention to incarnate and be free, right? Imagine like a path of light, like a glowing path of light. That path of light is so powerful. If you deviate from it, you're going to feel consequences. If you intended to awaken in this lifetime, veering from the path will have greater consequences for you than another person that didn't intend to have that experience, because all of us know people that live in anxiety and rage and they never get sick. So don't let the trickster in you feel guilty about whatever you're experiencing, right? But to help you raise the vibration of the body-mind so that you can handle as much light and express and radiate it, you must allow yourself to get out of denial. And that also means denial. Get out of the denial of how you contribute to your own chaos. Right? So it's not just acknowledging like, okay, maybe I'm in an abusive relationship or an abusive job and taking the appropriate actions, right? Which is a raising of the vibration. When you start to express boundaries and higher standards, that is evidence that you have raised your energy. However, it's essential that we take responsibility, right? And understand, how do we contribute to our own chaos? One of the main culprits of how we contribute to our own chaos is that we self-deceive. We remain in situations that have always felt bad to us, that maybe they don't even feel bad, they just feel a little off. Like if you're in a relationship and it just doesn't quite feel right, the choice to continue to stay in it is your responsibility. And often why we choose those things is because we don't feel free enough to trust the universe. We don't have that fundamental trust in life that we will be guided to something that's more compatible, right? Something that is more authentic to us. So you have to take responsibility for how you choose things out of fear. You have to take responsibility and become aware of what your motives are. So denial is the thing that prevents evolution. If you do not allow yourself to become aware of your motives, of your survival strategies, and of the way that you really feel, if you never allow yourself to do that, you will not have evolved in one lifetime. And that's a very powerful statement. The process of evolution is seeing the futility of an old program and leaving it behind. And that simply cannot be done in a state of denial. So I'm energizing this idea, right? If you feel enraged about something in your life and you try to pretend like you don't, you're never going to have access to the energy of the solution, because you're wasting too much bandwidth hiding from yourself your feelings, because you're trying to be spiritual and you're trying to be good. So Let yourself feel what you feel. Let all of that information, think of feeling and energy and information as being presented to you simply as help. Simply as help. Maybe my rage means that I'm abusing myself in some way, right? A lot of women that I work with, and this doesn't only apply to women, but I've said this many times, that it's so difficult for some people to say out loud, like, yes, I am in an abusive situation. It's so common for women that have been sexually abused to gaslight and not believe their children when their children say that they've been sexually abused. And so this eternal gaslighting and denial keeps the energy going. It keeps it going indefinitely because we believe on some level that staying in denial is safer than being free. It's safer than acknowledging what is. And look how this is operating in your life. It operates in us all. Otherwise, we wouldn't be living in a world with so much deception and so much violence. Denial is violence, period. If you allow yourself to acknowledge, right, what's going on the world stage, and sometimes, it takes a bit of training to feel something intuitively. And here's a little trick for that. Instead of trying to be open-minded and, think of every possibility of what's going on, either in your personal life or in the world stage, drop your consciousness below your neck and just ask your heart, like, what's going on here and what's the right thing for me to do, right? And you'll get clear guidance, right? Oh, maybe this is something you want to tune out of for now. Go over here. Let's go over here. So it's essential that we snap out of, remove the veil, right? Break the spell of denial so that we can actually see things as they are. And fundamentally, everything is God and everything is love, but there is a relative reality of how things are actually showing up. And you have no free will if you're in denial. You have no free will. There are no private thoughts, right? As the Course in Miracles says, there are no private thoughts. You can observe a thing and know a lot about it. And why is that helpful and important? Because it helps you make appropriate and intelligent decisions in your life. It doesn't mean that you close your heart and become judgmental. You can exercise discernment without judgment. They are very different things. Judgment is closing your heart and telling a story about something. Discernment is acknowledging the level of energy that's in front of you and making an appropriate decision. And if you continue to fall for deception, right, then I would ask, what's the veil that I'm putting over my own eyes? Why do I continue to get sucked into that situation? What is it in my mind that invites deception? And a lot of times it's I deceive myself. I don't listen to that feeling from the beginning until it gets so bad that I finally acknowledge that I have to do something about it. So, the greatest gift that we can give ourselves is to allow ourselves to see things as they are, to feel things as they are, to acknowledge everything as it is. And people can get tripped up with this, because even if you do something like A Course in Miracles, and so you're trying to decondition your mind from every kind of storytelling and only be in an energy of unconditional love, like, yes, you should do that. You should do that when you're by yourself, and you should never perpetuate an unloving story, right? It's your ego if you're continuing to perpetuate the story, but it's just reality. It's not the ego if you're just acknowledging something for what it is and you make an appropriate decision. If you're hiring someone, if you're wanting to hire someone for your business and this person doesn't feel right, okay, it's just annoying and you don't choose that. If you're interviewing someone to babysit your children and it doesn't feel right, you just don't choose that. You don't close your heart and project into the ethers all these stories about those people. You just let it go, right? But the trickster can use spiritual teachings to keep you in denial and to keep you in inertia, to keep you from evolving, to keep you from going to where you really want to go, which is learning through more joy, expanding your world, having connections with people and creating with others and giving and expressing yourself from a place of being enlivened by the Spirit. That's where you want to be, because that is the most maximal service that the universe can offer itself, to demonstrate its freedom, to demonstrate that bondage is a lie. And how do I get there in my own life? I realize that I have choices, right? If you honestly feel free inside, you never feel trapped in a situation. If you are aware that you are the universe, right? No situation would ever make you feel like you're in a corner or having on handcuffs, because you know that you have choices. You know that you can use your energy and your attention to create solutions. You know that you're not trapped by anything. You know you have no obligations. Right? So that's another piece about getting out of denial, realizing you're free. You are not obligated to marry within the same culture of your religious upbringing. You're just not. And there's a lot of fear around that because of getting cut out of a will or being exiled from your family. But if the soul came here to be free, and you don't let yourself be free, the consequences of that bondage, of that self-imposed bondage, will be greater than a person who didn't necessarily incarnate to demonstrate the awakened state. So that's my message for today. I'm energizing, moving out of denial, being real, realizing that reality is safer than denial. Reality is safer than repression. And look at it in your own life. How does it operate in your own life? How are you denying your responsibility in your own chaos? How are you denying acknowledging, like, people that are always convincing themselves out of something, right? Like, let's say you have values and you are considering having a relationship with someone, and there's certain values that are really important to you. If you start to talk yourself out of those values, oh, well, they're really nice and they have all these good qualities, so I guess it doesn't really matter to me that we can never have deep conversations, even though that's really important to me. That's self-deception. And that's why we end up in situations that blow up in our face, because we try to convince ourselves we're in denial of reality, which is what is important to us, our values. So I've said it in enough ways for today, but I hope this is helpful, and I hope you have a beautiful day.